Washington after a trip to an important Midwest swing state, talking about jobs building the future.
President Biden told his audience in La Crosse, Wisconsin, the bipartisan infrastructure deal would directly benefit them by investing in better internet, the power grid, and public transportation.
This bipartisan breakthrough is a great deal for the American people. Not just for folks in cities, not just for red states or blue states, but for everybody.
Biden admitted he had to make compromises to get the deal done, but called the agreement a generational investment.
This deal will put American workers to work in good-paying jobs.
Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, Washington.
The president says a big majority of the jobs created will be for blue-collar, non-college educated Americans. Mr. Biden and the First Lady are expected to go to Surfside, Florida, Thursday to meet with the families of the victims in the condo collapse. On Air Force One, Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
They want to thank the heroic first responders, search and rescue teams, and everyone who's been working tirelessly around the clock, and meet with the families who have been forced to endure this terrible tragedy, waiting in anguish and heartbreak for word of their loved ones.
11 dead, 150 still missing. Searchers say they haven't lost hope. The House is expected to vote tonight on a bill that would remove statues of Confederate or pro-slavery figures from the Capitol. It's expected to pass. House Majority Whip James Clyburn debating the bill on the House floor.
I don't call this a racist country. I do say that this country has, on occasion, too often for my taste, tolerated racism.
Trying to get more COVID shots in arms in under-vaccinated areas. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas visiting cities across the U.S. at a vaccination clinic today in San Antonio, Texas.
Get vaccinated, not only for your own health and well-being, but the health and well-being of your loved ones, your family, your friends, your neighbors.
You're listening to ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont Valley in the pass area this afternoon, partly sunny, maybe a shower or thunderstorm, high 96. Partly to mostly cloudy, stray shower or thunderstorm tonight, low 72. Wednesday, mostly sunny, maybe a shower or thunderstorm, high 96. For the Inland Empire this afternoon, we'll have a partly sunny sky, maybe a shower or thunderstorm, high 98. Can't rule out a thunderstorm in Palm Springs, high 106. I'm meteorologist Jim Minaldi for Spark Talk 1490 KMET.
Hello, listeners. This is Christopher from The Christopher Show. Hey, if you missed one of our shows here at KMET, don't worry about it. You can go to our webpage, and that's KMET1490am.com. Go to the homepage, click on the SoundCloud tab, and hear any show anytime you want.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates. The WK Law Power Hour is here to take you from zero to hero in legal knowledge in 60 minutes. A law firm with 40 years of experience is ready to give you legal guidance you need for free. What could be better than that? Amazing stories about actual cases. Interesting and informative guests. Listen, watch, call in. Come ready to learn. And now your host for WK Law Power Hour, Paul Wallin.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Paul Wallin. I'm the senior partner of Wallin Klarich. And at Wallin Klarich, we believe that legal knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have to solve your legal problems, the better off you will be for the rest of your life. So get that legal knowledge from our program. You can call in with any question you want at 951-922-3532. You can watch the show live at KMET 1490, or you can listen to it on your radio device. The purpose of this show is simple. It's to provide people with legal knowledge they need in the real world. It's also to discuss legal issues that are coming up in this country that need to be discussed. And if you are a follower of this program and you listen to the show every week, you will get amazing legal advice from experts in every area of law. Today, we have two different legal experts. One is Gary Polston, who is an experienced bankruptcy lawyer. So those of you who have charged up $30,000 on your credit cards and would like to know how in the hell do I get out of debt like that, he's the person to listen to and ask a question to. What does bankruptcy do to your credit? And how can you recover from a bankruptcy? And can you really wipe out your debtors? What are the limits? And Soheil Levy is another guest. He's a brilliant criminal defense attorney with Wallin Klarich. He's going to be answering questions today about how do I beat my traffic ticket? What kind of blood alcohol test should I take if arrested for DUI? And everything people want to know about warrants and things that they have friends or family or themselves who have problems. They're on probation for criminal cases. Just a lot of important legal advice. If you have a pending DUI case and you haven't got legal advice about it, you're making a huge mistake, because the legal advice you need when facing a DUI is extreme. The penalties for a DUI in California are, you name it, they're extreme. They're jail time, there's loss of your license, there's probation, there's fines, there's alcohol schools. So call in at 951-922-3532 if you'd like to discuss any legal question. We had last week one of our family law attorneys who talked about child custody, child support, visitation. Some of the most important areas of law if you have children or you're married. How do I get out of a marriage? How much support am I going to have to pay? These are the kind of things that we answer every single week for you guys. You can also email a question on TikTok. It's very simple. Just email a question on TikTok. I'll read it on the air. Many people get traffic tickets, and they want to know, of course, how can they beat the traffic ticket? And will the cop show up? And how many points is it going to be on my record? And those are the kind of things that are going to be answered today. Another thing that we're going to talk about today is what happens if I get arrested and I don't show up in court? Is there going to be a warrant that's going to go out for my arrest? And if so, what's the bail going to be, and how do I post bail? The other thing we like to talk about on the show are legal issues. And today, a very important legal issue came up for transgender kids. They go through so much crap in coming out and being able to finally realize who they should be. And then they go to school, and they just want to be treated equally or fairly. And several states have told these kids they are not allowed to use the restroom of the sex that they believe they are. Can you imagine how crappy that is? Can you imagine how traumatizing that is? Well, that's what the laws have been in many states. And the Supreme Court of the United States, as conservative as they are, believe it or not, they sided with transgender youth. Thank God. And they basically told those back-ass states, you cannot force them to use a bathroom of the sex they don't believe they are. And guess what? Now they're allowed to use the bathroom that they believe they associate with. And other people are going to have to deal with that. And I want to put a shout out to a very conservative Supreme Court who normally, with 3 Trump appointees, doesn't do the right thing, but they did the right thing there. Our other guest today is Gary Polston. As I mentioned, he'll be second, and he's going to be talking about everything that there is to know about bankruptcy. And that is really important in 2021, because now that we're coming out of the pandemic, credit is merely a big issue. And people, if you're getting emails like I am, throwing credit cards at you, it's a big mess. You just can't accept all these credit cards and run up a big credit card bill, because those bills are not going to go away. And when you don't pay them, you're going to have your credit messed up for a long time. And that's where Gary can come in and answer some questions about, can you wipe out credit card debt? And I want you guys to know that he's a brilliant lawyer. You're going to get a lot of information, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about criminal law, about traffic tickets, anything related to bankruptcy, or to be honest with you, anything else during this hour. Because as I said, knowledge is power. And I want you guys to know. So we're going to commercial break, and after the break, you're going to be hearing from Soheil Levy.
You've been charged with a crime, and now you're facing the loss of your freedom. Where do you turn to get out of jail or stay out of jail? The law offices of Wallin Klarich. Call 877-4-NO-JAIL. With over 20 years experience and attorneys who work in your local courts, Wallin Klarich can make the difference between jail and freedom. When you need help, make one call. Make it to Wallin Klarich. 877-4-NO-JAIL. The call is free. Will you be?
Hey, are you okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm fine.
17 to Central Jail.
If you've been arrested for DUI and are facing DMV in court hearings, it could mean losing your license, your job, and even your freedom. But Wallin Klarich can help. Just call 877-4-NO-JAIL. With attorneys who know your local courts, Wallin Klarich can make the difference between jail and freedom. Call Wallin Klarich at 877-4-NO-JAIL. The call is free. Will you be?
When your children are taken by social workers, it may be the worst day of your life. When will I see my children again? Where are they going? How can I get them back? Who can I turn to for help to end this nightmare? The answers to all these questions are a phone call or email away. Wallin Klarich have been helping defend parents who are battling the system to regain custody of their children for 40 years. Many of their clients have done nothing wrong to warrant their children being taken from them. Other clients may regret some action that they've taken with their children. However, in every case, the clients desperately need their children back. That's where Wallin Klarich comes in. They know the dependency system. They will do all they can to work to try to get your children back with you. Take the first step and call Wallin Klarich now for a free phone consultation at 877-466-5245. That's 877-466-5245. Or visit wklaw.com to chat with us. They'll be there when you call.
If you are facing criminal charges, your entire future is at stake. You need to act now to protect your job, your family, and your freedom. Call Wallin Klarich at 877-4-NO-JAIL. Wallin Klarich has over 30 years of experience in fighting for our clients' rights. With local offices in Riverside and San Bernardino, we are here to help you now. Call 877-4-NO-JAIL or go to wklaw.com. How much is your freedom worth? Call 877-466-5245. The call is free. Will you be?
When you have a warrant for your arrest, it's a very scary time in your life. When you drive a car, you have to be extra careful that you do not commit any sort of moving violation. You have to be looking over your shoulder, checking for police officers. Will you be stopped and thrown in jail? What a horrible feeling. For over 40 years, we have helped thousands of persons resolve their problem with having a warrant. In some cases, we can actually appear in court for you without you being present to recall the warrant. Depending on the facts of your case, you may never have to do 1 minute in jail. Stop living in fear. Call us now for a free phone consultation at 877-4-NO-JAIL. That is 877-4-NO-JAIL. Or go to wklaw.com. Isn't it time to get your life back? We will be there when you call.
Okay, we're back at the WK Law Power Hour with our first guest of the day, and that guest is Soheil Levy. Soheil Levy is a brilliant criminal defense lawyer at our law firm, Wallin Klarich, handling many different kinds of criminal cases. And I'd like to spend this time for you guys to get to know him, because unfortunately or fortunately, if God forbid you get into trouble, Saul may end up being your lawyer on a case, and you'd be very lucky if, in fact, he was. So, Saul, welcome to the show, first of all. How you doing?
Hi, Paul. I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Why don't you start by telling us your background, your educational background, even where you grew up, and how you got here?
Sure. So I am a native Southern California guy. I grew up in West LA ever since I was 2 years old. I went to University High School in LA, go Wildcats. I went to Loyola Marymount for my undergrad in Marina Del Rey. I got a bachelor's in political science. I got a minor in biology. Then I went to St. John's School of Law in New York. I did 2 years there. And then I finished my last year at Pepperdine University School of Law in Malibu. Hurricane Sandy happened, and so after that, I knew I was going to come back to California. So I can't.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you went to Pepperdine Law School.
That's right.
And Did you have any kind of like financial aid? Because I understand, because I'm telling you that because I went to Pepperdine Law School when they were part of a Safeway building where they did construction of, CVS now, it used to be called Savon. And literally during our classes, we could hear them drilling in the walls, but the tuition was $84 a unit. Do you remember what the tuition was when you went there?
It was quite a bit more.
Exactly. But at least you got through it. That's good. And then what made you want to be a criminal defense attorney?
I think the answer to that question would be just my background being Persian. I was born in Iran. I came to America when I was 2. And in Iran, they're not, and probably still not too, but there are not the kind of constitutional rights that we as Americans, I think sometimes maybe even take for granted, and we're so lucky and privileged to have them. My grandfather and my father would, at certain times, just because of our religious background, they would be taken into custody. They'd actually be jailed. My grandfather for a certain number of months. No one would know when he'd be getting out or when he'd be coming home, if at all. There were no court dates. So just hearing those stories growing up, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Why were they put in jail? Just because of their religious beliefs?
Just because, yeah, they were Jewish, and they, that's why.
Wow. So you sort of knew when you were going to law school that you wanted to represent people accused of crimes because of that experience?
I think it was more subconscious. I got to law school, and I for the first year and a half, I was actually kind of panicked because I didn't like contracts. I didn't really like the courses that I was getting. So I was kind of worried until my second semester of second year of law school. I took criminal procedure and evidence, and everything clicked, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do.
And do you enjoy what you do now?
I love what I do now.
Okay. And why don't you explain exactly what you do now at Wallin Klarich? What kind of cases do you handle? What courts do you go to? How often you go to court? Those kind of things.
So right now, my role at Wallin Klarich is primarily to handle Los Angeles County. I have a lot of experience in Los Angeles County, about more than 5 years of only doing criminal defense, primarily in LA County, handling almost all the misdemeanors. I believe all the misdemeanors at the firm, and then also depends on the circumstances, some felonies as well. And what I do is I basically either help people who are wrongfully accused have the right outcome for them, or I help people get second chances, even if maybe the evidence is overwhelming or maybe they are culpable. I help them not let one bad decision in their life ruin the rest of their life.
You know, some people, thousands of people over my career have asked me this question over and over, and it's, how can you represent people that you know are guilty? Why don't you address that? Because it's a fascinating question. I think people need to be educated.
I agree. It's the number one question that I get from friends, family, at parties, socially. It's just the number one. And what I would say to that is that even if a person is quote unquote guilty of a criminal offense, what I do is that I know what are good outcomes in LA County for that specific factual scenario for a person with that specific criminal background. So even if they're guilty, I know what a good deal is in that courtroom, in that department. I know what a bad deal is, and I know what a fair deal is. So even if they're guilty, I want to make sure that they, for whatever reason, don't get more punishment than basically the going rate. The example I use is basically a real estate agent. If someone is selling a home and you don't have a way to determine what a fair price for that home is, then and as a buyer you don't have a real estate agent, the seller is going to try to get as much money as possible. Same thing with the DA. Except for what they do is they negotiate punishment. So I try to make sure that even if they're guilty, they have the ability to get a good or fair deal and then preserve their future going forward.
I think that in many times people don't understand that the prosecutor's job is to get punishment. And often they don't take into consideration, nor do they even really know what the life story is of our clients. And many of our clients, if they do that 6 months in jail, which is easy for the DA to say, I want 6 months, they don't understand that that particular client could end up basically destroying his life because of lack of income. His wife might leave him. He might have a disabled child. And that's all the things we take into consideration in trying to get him, like you said, a second chance. Isn't that right?
That's 100% absolutely correct. What we do here and what I do, and what I love about what I do, is that I spend the time to get to know each and every client. What are the stakes for them? Do they have a professional license that they can lose if they get a certain conviction? Are they an armed security guard? Are they a nurse? Are they a doctor? Are they a lawyer? Are they going to lose their livelihood? These are the things that I think that with our firm and myself, we are very good at doing. I've worked at other firms before. This is the first firm that sends out a homework, a social history, which asks all those questions right away from the client when they're being retained, to give us all that information, because then we know, okay, if they take this deal, then they might, God forbid, get deported. Or if they take this deal, then they might lose their ability to be an armed security guard because they might lose their gun rights. So that is what we're very good at doing. We tailor the representation to the certain circumstances of the client.
I think also what's fascinating is a lot of people who don't understand how the criminal justice system really works thinks that the only kind of people we deal with are either poor people or minorities. A tremendous percentage of the people we represent are professionals, many times in domestic violence incidents where they are risking their career and so much is on the line. And we have to take, as you said, all that into consideration. And that brings up a good point. When you go to court on a client's case, on average, how many cases are you there on?
Generally, on average, I would have about 1 to 2 cases per day. Sometimes maybe on the heaviest day, it could be anywhere from 3 to 4, but that's pretty unusual. It's usually just 1 or 2 a day, and that gives me the ability to focus very much so my time on each individual case, where I know that the public defender doesn't really have that luxury.
We're going to talk about that. So first of all, when you're going to court on 1 or 2 cases or even 3, every one of those cases to that client is his life. And he needs someone to really to know that case and have spent time with you, right?
Correct.
Okay. I've read articles, and you see it, in many courts, the public defenders who represent clients can have anywhere from 15 to 50 clients in any morning or any day, right?
Could be more sometimes, yes. That is.
And why is that very problematic for those people who have that kind of representation?
The reason why that's problematic is they just don't have the time. So what potential clients, people who call me and speak to me about their case, they always ask me, what's the difference between hiring you and the public defender? What I tell them, this is literally what I tell them, is that hey, some public defenders are good, some public defenders are not so good, some are bad, just like private attorneys. Some are good, some are bad, just like doctors. Some plastic surgeons are good, some aren't as good. And you can tell that yourself, you're one of the good ones, and the reason why is just longevity. You've been an attorney for almost 40 years, and you wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't getting good results. And number 2, the positive reviews. That speaks for itself. But what all public defenders have in common is they have way too many cases, in my opinion. And generally, when clients go to court, I've heard they have 30 seconds to 2 minutes to speak to the public defender, if at all. And they usually don't have any idea of what's going on, why it's being put over to another date. and it just doesn't allow the public defender, and they could have different public defenders. They could go to the first court date, have one, go to a second court date, have a different one. So there's no real continuity in the representation.
I would say on an average month, our firm gets approximately 50 to 100 calls from people basically begging us to take their case from the public defender. And in many cases, we're able to, because we have a payment plan that we can set up for most people. And literally, the tears that people shed when we tell them we'll take on their case, and they actually can come into our office and sit with us for an hour and talk about their case, and we can get to know them. It's a foreign land for them. They don't have any idea that that's how a lawyer should be. They just knew that in the past they had a public defender, and now unfortunately have another case, and they just don't want to go through it again. And the families of the people that have the public defender, they're calling the public defender many, many times, and they don't get a call back. So they don't know what's going on with their loved one's case, and they could be facing 6 years in prison. So that is why our system has to change somehow. Either there has to be less people that need the public defender or something. But for now, I pray that if you have a criminal case, don't hesitate to call us that you don't have a lot of money, because there's no consultation fee, not a dime. We'll be glad to talk to you about your case and give you guidance, even if you can't afford to hire us. And that's the way it's been at Wallin Klarich for 40 years. So we have a few more minutes, and obviously you're going to come back, because this is what happens with everyone I was mentioning to you. We're not going to get through most of these questions, but if you can, first of all, let's address something. If you're representing someone for a misdemeanor and they have a job and they say, if I hire you, can you go to court for me? What is the answer to that so they don't miss work?
The answer to that is generally, the majority of the time, yes. For misdemeanor cases, I will be able to attend the arraignment and pretty much every single court date, other than, and this is for the majority of cases, other than if the client wanted to take a plea deal or they wanted to go all the way to jury trial at some point, then they would have to physically come to court and be present. Even with the plea deal, sometimes I'm able to have the client come into my office. We go over the plea deal, and then they have the plea form notarized. So I've had clients in misdemeanor cases who have literally never stepped foot in a courthouse ever. There are some exceptions. The biggest one would be domestic violence, because in that type of misdemeanor case, there is a criminal protective order that is issued, so the defendant has to be present at the arraignment. But for the majority of cases, they will not have to take off work.
So in most of our misdemeanor cases, they can hire us. They can come to us in our office, or maybe even talk to us on Zoom, and never have to go to the court, and we resolve their case for them.
That's correct. I've had clients who live in different states. I just resolved the case for a woman in New Mexico. She never stepped foot in court. There was a warrant. I took care of everything.
It's not just they miss time from work. Some people literally are terrified to go into a court facing a criminal charge, believing they're going to be taken into custody, and we eliminate that from the equation, and that lowers their anxiety level tremendously, I think. Now, sure. We got a minute left in this segment, so I want to ask you another question. When people say to you, am I going to go to jail, right when you get the case, how do you deal with that?
So the answer to that question is, and it's the ultimate lawyer question, it depends. I try everything I do to avoid jail for a client. There are a lot of alternatives to jail. There are electronic monitoring, home arrest. There is community service and community labor. What I try to do is kind of a two-step process. I try to avoid jail from the beginning. If I can get the DA to agree or the city attorney to agree to no jail from the beginning, great. If my client doesn't have a criminal history, then I try to obtain a result where there is no conviction on his record. So no jail is the first goal, and if I can have it not be on their record as well, that's the second priority.
Okay, well, I want to tell you, Saul, we obviously have no more time in this segment. You're definitely coming back. I can only tell you guys, if God forbid you need a lawyer and you have a case in LA County, this is the guy you want. wklaw.com, 877-466-5245, and we will help you. And now we're going to a commercial break. Thanks again, Saul.
Thank you very much for having me.
You've been charged with a crime, and now you're facing the loss of your freedom. Where do you turn to get out of jail or stay out of jail? The law offices of Wallin Klarich. Call 877-4-NO-JAIL. With over 20 years' experience and attorneys who work in your local courts, Wallin Klarich can make the difference between jail and freedom. When you need help, make one call. Make it to Wallin Klarich. 877-4-NO-JAIL. The call is free. Will you be?
Hey, are you okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm fine.
17 to Central Jail.
If you've been arrested for DUI and are facing DMV in court hearings, it could mean losing your license, your job, and even your freedom. But Wallin Klarich can help. Just call 877-4-NO-JAIL. With attorneys who know your local courts, Wallin Klarich can make the difference between jail and freedom. Call Wallin Klarich at 877-4-NO-JAIL. The call is free. Will you be?
When your children are taken by social workers, it may be the worst day of your life. When will I see my children again? Where are they going? How can I get them back? Who can I turn to for help to end this nightmare? The answers to all these questions are a phone call or email away. Wallin Klarich have been helping defend parents who are battling the system to regain custody of their children for 40 years. Many of their clients have done nothing wrong to warrant their children being taken from them. Other clients may regret some action that they've taken with their children. However, in every case, the clients desperately need their children back. That's where Wallin Klarich comes in. They know the dependency system. They will do all they can to work to try to get your children back with you. Take the first step and call Wallin Klarich now for a free phone consultation at 877-466-5245. That's 877-466-5245. Or visit wklaw.com to chat with us. They'll be there when you call. When you are facing a serious criminal charge, it means you may be looking at many years in prison or doing up to 1 year in county jail. Most people do not know who to turn to in their time of need for expert legal guidance. What you do next can make the difference between ending up in prison for many years or having your charges dismissed and you going free. At this very critical time in your life, you need Wallin Klarich fighting for you. Wallin Klarich has 40 years of criminal defense experience, and they work very hard to do all they can to win their clients' cases. Wallin Klarich has a team of 10 criminal defense lawyers fighting for their clients every day. They help people with cases pending throughout California. They successfully defend cases dealing with murder, sex crimes, all felonies, as well as misdemeanors. Check out wklaw.com for some real client success stories. They offer a free phone consultation to answer your questions. Call them toll-free at 877-4-NO-JAIL. That's 877-4-NO-JAIL. They will be there when you call.
If you are facing criminal charges, your entire future is at stake. You need to act now to protect your job, your family, and your freedom. Call Wallin Klarich at 877-4-NO-JAIL. Wallin Klarich has over 30 years of experience in fighting for our clients' rights. With local offices in Riverside and San Bernardino, we are here to help you now. Call 877-4-NO-JAIL or go to wklaw.com. How much is your freedom worth? Call 877-466-5245. The call is free. Will you be?
Hi, guys. Welcome back to the WK Law Power Hour. I'm Paul Wallin, Senior Partner at Wallin Klarich, where every week we bring you very, very intelligent and experienced lawyers talking about different areas of law. And we have had many requests to talk to a brilliant bankruptcy lawyer, and we happen to have that exact person today, Gary Polston. Hi, Gary. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
And thank you for coming on the show, because I think your background is perfect for the kind of questions we have today. So why don't you tell us, first of all, a little background about yourself and a little about your educational background?
I am an Orange County native. Grew up here, born, raised. All my education is in Orange County. Married the love of my life. I have a 5-year-old daughter who is about to start kindergarten, which is making me surprisingly anxious. So I'm nervous about that. Went to school in Orange County, like I said, law school. I was the first in my family to go to college. And then a couple years later, I decided to go to law school.
And where did you go to law school?
Western State. I worked full time when I went to school, so that was one of the schools that allowed you to go to school at night. Probably a mistake. I got a lot more gray hairs than if I would have just gone to school, but yeah.
I understand. So what made you decide to go to law school?
You know, when I went to law school, I had a dream of helping people. And my family wasn't rich. Like I said, I was the first with a college education, and I couldn't imagine anything more scary than being in court, regardless of what it is, whether it's crim defense, family law, bankruptcy. You need somebody on your side. And so I had a dream of going to law school and being that person on somebody's side.
Okay. And then when you got through law school, what gravitated you to bankruptcy law?
That I switched my area of practice in 2008, and much like we're experiencing now, there are a lot of people in 2008, really good people who, through no fault of their own, were in deep financial trouble. Companies were closing down, jobs were going away, people were being forced to work part-time, yet they are still being expected to maintain their bills. And if someone has the choice of putting food on the table for their family or not, they're going to reach into their credit cards. And we're experiencing that today. People were told they cannot show up to work. And why government assistance eventually came, they may have had to go 6 to 8 weeks without a check. Those people then reach into their credit cards because they had to feed their family. That was their only choice. Unfortunately, that credit card, if it didn't get paid, the 15% interest went to 30% interest, and then there is an ugly snowball effect. And that's where bankruptcy can come in.
So you have been doing bankruptcy now for how many years?
13.
And is that just almost exclusively what you do, all aspects of bankruptcy?
Yes, all aspects of bankruptcy. I've been an attorney for 19 years, and the last 13 of them is bankruptcy.
Okay. And where is your office located?
I'm in Laguna Hills, right off the freeway on El Toro. Across from the Laguna Hills Mall. That makes it easy for anyone.
And could you give us your website address?
Sure. It's Polston Law, my last name, POLSTONLAW.com.
And your phone number of your office?
Sure. 714-532-3909.
After we get answers to all these questions, you're going to see why Gary would be an ideal person to contact if you had any questions in bankruptcy law. And by the way, if someone calls you about a bankruptcy question, can they speak to you on the phone?
Oh, yeah. I don't charge for a consultation. Most of my clients are going to end up with my cell phone at some point. So I like to be very direct with my clients. You know, there's never a bad time to call me. If I can't answer, I won't, but I will get back to them right away. I like to be very responsive.
Well, that really makes you unusual as a lawyer.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't call you.
4 points at home, but it works.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately or fortunately, one of the reasons I think that our law firm has been successful is one of our lawyers is available pretty much 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the week. And most lawyers maybe like their off time more than we do. But on the other hand, then we wouldn't be able to help a lot of people. So that's pretty admirable. So first of all, can you tell us the different types of bankruptcy that are in California?
There's actually quite a few, but the most common are Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. And both of those are called, or 7 is a liquidation bankruptcy. And we try to get everyone in a 7. A Chapter 7 is quicker, it's cheaper, and you don't have to pay your creditors back. However, if you make too much money, you can't file a 7, or if you own too much in assets and the court would take them, and if that's the case, we put you into a 13. Now, 13 is a 3 to 5 year endeavor, and you're going to pay some of your creditors back. The good thing is you're paying them back interest-free. So if you have $30,000 in credit card debt, it could take you 30 years to pay that off. If you're paying it back off traditionally, with Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you could pay it off in 3 years with under $1,000 a month payment.
So wait, how do you decide then which one of your clients is better for a Chapter 7 versus a Chapter 13? Give us an example of someone you put into a Chapter 7 after discussing their assets. Why is that better for that person?
If they're going to lose assets, if somebody for bankruptcy, you can have $600,000 in equity in a home. As of January 1st of this year, California upped their homeowners exemption. But if someone comes to me and they have $1 million in homeowner or home equity, and they file a Chapter 7, the court will take their home. It's very black and white. They will take their home, they'll sell it, and they'll try to pay off the creditor. So if that person has $50,000 in credit card debt, which is still going to be impossible for them to pay. It'll take them the rest of their life to pay off credit card debt of $50,000. Even if they have $1 million in equity in their home, we put them in at a 13. And what the beauty of a 13 is it stops all interest payment. So then the court says, you're going to pay off this $50,000 in credit card debt, but you're going to pay it off interest free. So I don't do math in my head. If I did, I would have been a doctor. But we're talking about a $900 a month payment over a 5-year period. And at the end of 5 years, I'm calling up and saying you're debt free, where their minimum payments on $50,000 is probably right now about $2,000 a month. And that's going to go on for the next 22 to 24 years. And then they're to become debt free.
So $50,000 over 60 months is actually $833 a month, because I do have a calculator. So that's what you're saying, that they would pay $833 a month over 60 months and wipe out their debt.
There's going to be some court expenses, so it really will run up to about $900 a month. So I could do that part in my head, but yeah, about $900 a month, and then they're debt free.
But what other consequences are there to the person to do a Chapter 13, long term, short term, their credit?
The consequences for bankruptcy can almost be the same. First of all, you're debt free. Now, some people think bankruptcy ruins your life, but in fact, I call it the reset button. You're gonna become debt free. So in a 7, I call somebody up in 5 months, congratulations, you're debt free. But from the time I filed the bankruptcy to 5 months later when I call them up, they're getting a slew of credit card offers. And most people say, I'll never touch credit again. Well, I'm married to a banker, and that's the wrong, unless they're gonna become Amish, they really need to reestablish their credit. So I tell every one of my clients, let's get you 3 credit cards. And it's very easy to get after bankruptcy, but let's one for credit, or one for gas, one for groceries, one for when you go out to dinner. You make one charge, you pay it off at the end of the month, and your credit is going to go up exponentially. So, and most people surprisingly will call me. Their credit rises. If they have a 400 credit, it could be a month after they file bankruptcy, even before the case is closed, their credit score is 100 points higher. Reason being is, for all intents and purposes, they're debt free. And the reality is they can't file a bankruptcy for 8 months. They're a very good credit risk.
Okay, so we were talking about a 13. So now you have a person that doesn't want to lose his house, so because he has over 600,000 equity, so he's got to go to a 13. With a 13, he can pay off his debts over 60 months. Credit cards, other debts, I assume too, not just credit cards.
All debt.
Right?
Yeah, he can pay all debt. The beauty of a 13 is when they make those monthly court payments on time, it actually gets counted on as good credit. So a mortgage lender, let's say in the middle of a 13, mortgage rates drop. So they're in the middle of a bankruptcy, but they can refi their house and pay a lot less in interest. If they've made 12 months of solid on-time payments to the bankruptcy trustee, a mortgage broker could get them a better interest rate. And I've had many clients, what they do is they refi their home, they use that money to pay off the bankruptcy, and they're out of a bankruptcy in 2 years versus 3 to 5.
So of course there's no penalty if they pay it off earlier.
Oh, no.
Okay. And are you saying that even though they're in a Chapter 13, and even though it goes on for up to 5 years, it does not negatively impact their credit?
No, that's too general of a statement to say it doesn't negatively impact their credit. There is a bankruptcy on their record. There's always going to be some people that don't want to lend, but especially with a 13, you get to show those on-time court payments as good credit. So I've got a mortgage broker that I work with regularly, and she has always been able to get clients a better rate, even in the middle of a bankruptcy. So if they come to me and interest rates went from 5% to 3%, she's able to negotiate a deal for them, and often that's what buys them out of the bankruptcy.
Okay, so if a person doesn't have over 600,000 equity in their house, let's take this example. It's a person that is married with 2 kids. They rent. They've accrued $35,000 in credit card debt and maybe another debt for $10,000. Why would or wouldn't Chapter 7 work for them?
No, a 7 would. The only reason a 7 wouldn't work is if they make too much money. So a family of 4, they just raised the rate, but if they made over 120, 130,000, then they would be forced into a 13. If they're under that, so let's say that person makes 75,000, a good income, but has a family of 4, they are in a 7.
Okay, now explain the process for a 7 like you did for 13. How does it go exactly?
Basically, we file it about 45 days to the date we are in court together. Right now, court is over Zoom or telephone. That's the creditor meeting. The trustee is looking to see, these people have assets that he or she can take, sell, and pay off creditors. My job is to protect those assets. And we can talk about what the method is for that, but 99% of my clients are able to keep all their assets. After the creditor meeting, about 2.5 months later, I'm calling them up, telling them they're debt free.
Wow. So it takes as short as 2.5 months?
After the creditor meeting, typically it's about a 4.5 to 5 month procedure, start to finish, at Chapter 7.
And does it wipe out all unsecured debts?
All unsecured debt, there's very few exceptions if the debt was incurred because of fraud. If it's a government debt, such as a student loan that's been federally backed by the government, some taxes wipe out, some taxes don't wipe out. So I always tell my clients to assume your taxes are not going to wipe out and then make your decision on whether you want to file.
Okay, so here's this person that had all this debt. Obviously, it normally causes marital stress and every other kind of stress. Collectors are calling you. Once you enter into bankruptcy, is there a law that says that the collection agencies can't have to stop calling you?
Yes, typically the calls will automatically stop in about 2 days. Once you file a bankruptcy, it hits the credit system, and most collectors, if they're professional collectors, will stop. If the collector doesn't stop and they call, I advise my clients to let them know I filed a bankruptcy. Here's my attorney's number. Please call that. That will then stop. If they don't stop, there are laws that will impose penalties on creditors. It's called creditor abuse, and the courts are very harsh against them. So most of them will typically stop.
When you file for a Chapter 7, I assume you have to fill out your financial documents, and you have to show the court what your assets are, right?
Yes.
So what happens if you show the bank that the bankruptcy judge that you have $1,900 in one bank account and your checking account has $3,300, and let's say you have a paid off car that's worth $20,000. How does that work? Do you get to keep all that, or does the court say, wait a second, you can't have that stuff and wipe out your creditors, or is it okay?
Well, I'll give you the Saul's legal answer. It depends. So we're gonna look at if they don't have a house. So they're called 703 exemptions in California. I could protect $38,000 of anything. So a client of mine could have $38,000 in cash, file bankruptcy, and at the end of it, they'll still have that $38,000. There's exemptions for household goods, for clothing, for cars. Now, the car exemption is about $5,000. So if in the scenario you gave me, about $5,000 in cash, a $20,000 car, no problem. They're going to keep everything they have, and at the end of 5 months, they're debt free.
Wait, even if they have a $20,000 car, it's paid off?
Yes, yeah. In the scenario you gave me, they had about $5,000 in cash. I can protect $38,000 of anything, a car, a boat, a jet ski, whatever you want, it's protected. As long as we're not talking about homeowners equity, I can protect $38,000 of anything. So $38,000 in cash in the bank, it's protected.
Okay, so far, I'm saying to myself, because I don't understand bankruptcy, you know the saying, it is way too good to be true. I'm still looking for a reason why this isn't just too good to be true. So they can keep up to $38,000. They can wipe out $60,000 in credit card debt, not pay them a dime. In 2 days, the creditors have to stop bugging them. They now have this money to start over again. Am I getting it right?
Yes, they have the money. Now, not everyone who calls me has $38,000 in the bank. So most people that call me are flat broke. That's why, I mean, a lot of people have a stigma against bankruptcy. And that's the bad thing is I'll watch somebody drain their life savings, drain their 401k to avoid bankruptcy. And they think they're doing the right thing, but you don't drain 20 years of work that you put into your 401k because it's the right thing. There is a downside to bankruptcy.
Wait, 1 second. What are the downsides to bankruptcy? Because so far I haven't got any.
Your credit, I mean, if you have an 800, let's say you have perfect credit at 800, it's going to go down after bankruptcy. That's not
how much. So if you have 800 credit score and you do exactly what we just said, first of all, that person probably doesn't have an 800 credit score, right? Because they haven't been paying their creditors. So let's say they have a 600 credit score. Their credit score is going to go down to 500 maybe?
Going down to the fives at least. Nobody understands how credits work. It's like a high school slam book. People can put anything they want in it. I've called credit companies, they don't know how it works. But if you have a 600, my guesstimate, you're going to be in the fives. It's going to take you about 1.5 years to get back to 6. There are certain credit cards. The bankruptcy is on your record for 10 years. The triple platinum rewards cards, they're not going to give you a credit card for 10 years. But within the first year after bankruptcy, there are plenty who will give you a credit card. And every year after that, your credit will build.
So you mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. So you mean for the first year, this seems to be the first negative thing I've heard, that for the first year after, well, one thing you said your credit score will go down 100. No, that's not that big of a deal because he's already not that high. And the second is that for 1 year after you declare bank, you go into a 7, no one's going to loan you money and you're not going to get credit cards at all?
Actually, just the opposite. For the first year, there is a sweet spot. Almost every credit card company will give you a card. I believe they're financed by the government. We're a consumer-based economy. We work because people spend money. So people are eagerly giving post-bankruptcy credit, my clients credit, but it's usually at sweet spots within a year. Afterwards, it gets harder. That's why I tell my clients, get your 3 credit cards in that first year. Start using them wisely, charge it up so your 500 credit score will get up to 600, will get up to 700. 2 years after a bankruptcy, a bank will lend for a home loan. Now here's the hidden cost of bankruptcy. If everyone else is paying 3%, you're going to be paying in the high 5s. That's just the hidden cost.
So if you declare bankruptcy, you're going to pay higher interest rate for things. That's going to be the negative.
That's the negative. If you pay your credit cards off every month, that higher interest rate doesn't matter. But for a home loan, if everyone else is paying 3%, you're going to be in the 5s at least. You have to bite the bullet. 2 years later, so now you're 4 years after your bankruptcy. If everyone else is paying 3, you're going to be in the 4s. 6 years later, after your bankruptcy, if everyone else is paying 3, that's about where you're going to be.
Okay. How often can you declare bankruptcy?
Once every 8 years.
Okay, so this person that got a Chapter 7 is going through this process. If he gets messed up with credit again, he's SOL for 7 more years.
Yeah, which is why people are very eager to lend you money. You're a good credit risk. You can't file bankruptcy again for 8 years. So it's typically people think I can't get an apartment. That's wrong. You'll get an apartment. People think I'll never get credit again. That's wrong. Most creditors are quite eager to lend you money if they know you can't file bankruptcy again.
Gary, you are extremely knowledgeable. Can you please once again give us your website and your phone number for people that would like to call you?
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. My website is polstonlaw.com. That's POLSTONLAW.com. And my phone number is 714-532-3909.
If anyone has any financial questions, you just heard, you can call Gary 24/7. His spouse will not appreciate it, but he's willing to take the call. He doesn't charge you. He's a great guy. And I want you, thank you for coming, Gary. I really appreciate it. And I want you guys to know at the WK Law Power Hour, If you watch this show or listen to the show every week, you will be a knowledgeable person. You will have more power when it comes to a legal problem. We love having you as guests on our show. We love you listening to the show, and it's wklaw.com if you have any questions of us. Have a great evening, and thank you for sharing this week.